I wanted to share this video. Um, I found it interesting because it covers Serena Williams, who I didn't even know that Serena Williams was a JW, but it's or was part of Jehovah's Witnesses now. But it shows her lighting the or carrying a torch for the Olympics.
Hope everyone is having a good weekend. I've got a couple of news items here to cover and give my opinion on something here. First, I want to say I'm not hating on Serena Williams. I think it's great that a woman can get to the top of a sport, and, everyone should be entitled to do what they want. Everyone, including members of the Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, for those of you that don't know it, a couple of years ago, Serena Williams, the tennis pro, was baptized as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and several in her family are Jehovah's Witnesses. And it was even on TikTok then, X, Twitter, that she was baptized. And there was even video of her actually getting dunked under the water. So, like I said, I'm not hating on her, and she can do what she wants. I don't care. But I also want to give my opinion that as a Jehovah Witness, would the rank and file average Jehovah Witness be allowed to participate in a pagan festivity? Now think about this. Can kids celebrate their birthdays? No, because it's a pagan festivity. Can't celebrate your birthdays. Well, what about a average rank and file participating in the Olympics or the opening ceremonies? Serena Williams was carrying the torch in Paris. And I'm going to play a video clip here from her own TikTok account.
And like, I just wanted to share this because as a practicing pagan that used to be part of or that is now an ex-member of Jehovah's Witness, you know, I would want to practice pagan rituals, and I would want to you know, express what I believe to be the right way to live my life, basically. And I was scrutinized a lot when I was in the organization. You know, I was constantly disciplined that no, you cannot do this here. We're Christians. We are not pagans. And it's also like pointed out in their literature that serving other pagan gods, you make yourself an enemy of their god. So they say. Now, being that Serena Williams is a celebrity, and and she's on the top of sports. I mean, I'm not hating anything about her, and but seeing how Watchtower is so into money and so into trying to get every penny that they can from members. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but I'm just going to go ahead and say what I think is going to happen. I don't think she's going to get any flack from Watchtower for doing this. I mean, she's rich. So that's what they care about having in their organization, and they try to take as much money as they can from members. I'm gonna go ahead and continue playing a video. She's gonna show a video of her carrying the torch. I don't want to show like the whole video though of that, because there's music in some parts. But there she is on the boat carrying the torch for the Olympics. And, maybe this is something that's just, part of her job.
All right, everyone, we did it!
This is unique.
This is something I'll never forget.
And never do again.
Oh, okay. Hey, we're completely soaked. Super excited I decided not to wear the white dress. But it's fun. I'll never forget this.
And, it is a great honor. And, that's great. But as a Jehovah Witness, did she do her background research of can she do it or can't she? Now, I want to play a clip here. This is from a public information Jehovah Witness in India. And this was after the explosion that was at the convention last year, I believe. Now, listen carefully to what he says when asked about blood transfusions and birthdays.
The other thing I wanted to ask you is that I know the Jehovah's Witnesses really advocate returning to the biblical text as source material, and that you try to live your life as closely to the Bible as possible. This includes practices that are conventionally, rather unconventional, like not accepting blood transfusions or not celebrating birthdays. This is something that has kind of created a stereotype around Jehovah's Witnesses. Just wanted a bit more clarity on these kinds of practices and how does one go about living like a Jehovah's Witness in a modern society?
Well, yes, I mean, it's everything is personal decision. While we have our publications which explains the Bible principles, but each individual has to decide whether he wants to follow that or not. So it's personal responsibility. Each one carries his own load, just the Bible says. So yeah, that is what we believe and what we practice. But life is precious. So the principle is life is precious, and that is why we do things. So we have a high regard for life, whether riding a scooter, riding a car, or even in case of blood transfusion. Jehovah's Witnesses give high regard to life, but it's a personal decision. And we are also happy that the medical community has come up with very much, transfusion alternatives. And each Jehovah's Witness decides, according to his Bible-trained conscience, which kind of medical care he will go for or not.
Just to add some context, Jehovah's Witnesses won a landmark Supreme Court case in 1986 when 3 students in Kerala actually were expelled from their school because they stood up during the national anthem but chose not to sing it. And the Supreme Court held that their choice to not sing it is an expression of their religious freedom. Do you think that these were the kinds of quote-unquote anti-national activities that the accused Dominic Martin might have been going after, or how do you respond to that?
Yeah, just like I said, it's a personal responsibility of whatever one does with his or her life. As far as the national anthem is concerned, we respect the national anthem, we respect the flag, and in fact, we show our respect to the country by being, honest citizens of the country.
So it's up to an individual Jehovah Witness. Now, I'm going to put the link down below. I highly recommend you go and watch this whole 14-minute interview and get a legal pad and make a little mark every time he says something that those of us that were in the Jehovah's Witnesses for decades realize, oh, are they softening it? Is he lying? You decide.
I didn't watch the whole video, but just from the part where they were talking about like no birthdays and no blood transfusions, like so many lives are lost because they don't allow, like Jehovah's Witnesses do not allow blood transfusions, like taking blood from that another person has donated. Um, they they don't allow it. People die because of it, and it's a very sad thing. And I mean, in the video, they say that it's up to the individual's conscience whether or not they want to do that. Um, I was in the organization for 29, 30 years, and I mean, if it was brought out in plenty of midweek meetings, plenty of watchtower studies, that if a member of the congregation decides to have a blood transfusion, that and that becomes known that they got a blood transfusion, in other words, accepting like full blood from another person that has donated it, that they will be expelled from the congregation. And when you're expelled from the congregation, you lose access to any family that may be in that congregation. So because you want it to value your life, you want it to live, you're now being punished for it, for taking blood transfusion, which is weird coming from an organization that says that they value life. They take this from what the Bible says, that blood is viewed as being sacred and should go back should go into the ground. It shouldn't be put into one person's blood shouldn't be put into another person's body, and blood should not be eaten either. Something else that they believe. And I mean, so many people die from that because they're trying to do the right thing that they've been taught to do, and it ends up taking their life, and it's a sad thing. And I mean, the thing with birthdays also, like, I've never really celebrated my birthday just from growing up in the cult. I've never been able to celebrate my birthday. My family does not believe in celebrating birthdays either. And anytime I had to, like, I was in school, I was in a classroom, if there was a birthday party in the classroom, I had to ask the teacher, a birthday party or any type of like celebration for like holidays, I had to ask the teacher to go and for me to go and sit in the library by myself, because I wasn't allowed to partake in those holidays. And I remember this like early on. I think I was like in the third grade or something. Yeah, I believe I was in like the third grade, and there was a classroom birthday party, and I didn't go to the library, and my parents found out about it, and they found out that I participated in celebrating in in a birthday, and I was grounded for it. I was yelled at for it, and I think even like that day and maybe like the next day, I wasn't even allowed to like eat dinner um, with with my parents. Like my parents would not allow me to go to the dinner table because that was their thought process. That's what they believed in. If you do this stuff, you will be expelled from the congregation. You will have no access to your family, and that's what they were trying to instill in me when I was a young child. And it's very sad that children have to grow up under that kind of those kinds of rules because that's what this religion teaches.
But he mentions falsehoods, you know, because the person that carried out the attack, he had issues with Watchtower's teachings and their policies and rules. And so, you know, the PID guy says, oh, falsehoods, falsehoods. Each Jehovah Witness can make up their mind. But what happens if the elders catch you having a huge birthday party? Think about that. What if the entire world knew the governing body were having a big birthday party and celebrating their birthdays? Think about that. Now, I want to thank Larchwood very much for posting this on X.
And that's something else. It's like it prevents a person from developing normal social skills because that's what like part of going to school is. I mean, yeah, you go to school to get an education and to try and understand to learn an understanding of how the world around you works. But you also go to school to develop a social skills and form social circles so you know you can know how to do that in your adult life. Well, when you grow up as a Jehovah's Witness, it's very difficult to do that because part of having a social circle is also celebrating things with people. Part of having friends is celebrating things with people. And when you don't know how to do that, then you can't form a good social circle. You can't, like, I've never been able to feel like that I've, you know, been connected with people because when it came to things like holidays and stuff, I would never, you know, celebrate them. And that was, you know, that's a chunk of something that, you know, people are doing that you're missing out on and you're not there for. And, you know, it affects you later on in life.
AKA Twitter. It is from the 1977 Awake, and I happen to have the Bond volume hard copy here. Yeah, the actual yellowed hard copy. February 8th, page 5. The Olympics, where are they headed? And I want to go over to page 6, the subheading, History of the Games. And I'm going to read this. It is of interest to review briefly the history of the Olympics to see how they developed to their present form. What eventually happened to the ancient games may find a parallel in the modern event. The first recorded Olympic Games were held in the year 776 BCE on the plains of Olympia in western Greece. That was about the same time that the ancient Hebrew prophet Isaiah began to prophesy to the nation of Judah. But while Isaiah talked about the living God, the ancient Greeks dedicated their Olympics to the false god Zeus. So would that classify this as the Olympics as a pagan festival? Pagan games? You decide. Since the games honored Zeus, there were sacrifices to him and other mythical gods. There was also the worship of the Olympic fire. Today we call it the Olympic torch. goes on to describe what games they had at that time. Now, so I did a little digging. Insight Book, Volume 1, page 887, under the title Games. When you go over to the second column, under the subheading Greece, at about the time that Isaiah began to prophesy in Judah, the Greeks began their famous Olympic athletic contests in honor of Zeus. In the year 776 BCE, while the games at Olympia remained the most famous, 3 other Greek towns became important centers of the contest. And then they talk about what other, cities had Olympic Games. The Olympic Games were celebrated every 4 years and were of profound religious significance. Religious sacrifice and the worship of the Olympic fire were prominent features of the festival. Now, Larchwood also posted this a little bit of history about the Olympic Games, and you can go to any encyclopedia, website, and they will tell you, basically the same thing. The idea for the Olympic flame was derived from ancient Greek ceremonies, okay? Olympic flame. Where sacred fire was kept burning throughout the celebration of the ancient Olympics on the altar of the sanctuary of Hestia. In ancient Greek mythology, the fire had divine connotations, and it was thought to have been stolen from the gods by Prometheus. Sacred fires were present at many ancient Greek sanctuaries, including those at Olympia. Every 4 years, when Zeus was honored at the Olympic Games, additional fires were lit at his temple and that of his wife Hera. The modern Olympic flame is ignited every 2 years in front of the ruins of the temple of Hera. So, would carrying the Olympic torch be part of this celebration? So are they softening their pagan festivals? Are they going to allow birthdays now? Watchtower. If you allow Serena Williams, as a baptized Jehovah's Witness, to carry the Olympic torch and be part of that celebration, the ancient celebration of Zeus, the pagan god, your words, not mine, then can Jehovah's Witnesses start celebrating birthdays now? I don't know. My personal humble opinion, I don't see a difference. I don't
really see pagan. I don't really see birthdays as being like a pagan thing. Like, I mean, just about everyone I know, besides people and Jehovah's Witnesses, have celebrated birthdays. So I don't really see that as being like a pagan thing. But I mean, I find it that they're probably not. I mean, they're probably not gonna make a big deal out of it because she has money. Watchtower wants people that have money because they need money right now because of all the court cases they have dealing with CSA going on, and it's bleeding them for money. So them having someone with money and a good standing social status and a good career, which is strange because they teach that people shouldn't pursue careers in the world. They should devote and dedicate all their time to worshiping Jehovah and doing everything, dedicate their time to, I guess they call it theocratic matters and preaching and studying and living a Bible-based life. Like, that's the stuff that they teach. And I was like growing up as a kid, um, growing up in Watchtower, like going to college was something that was very discouraged. Oh, um, you should be a pioneer, or you shouldn't worry about getting your high school diploma. You can just get your GED. Like, that's something that's, acceptable. You can find a decent job with that, and you can um, devote most of your time to being a pioneer. That's the stuff that they tell kids. They don't want kids going out into the world discovering, that they've been lied to most of their life, um, and discovering what JW really is. And it's sad how many lives get destroyed, how many, kids grow up, they don't pursue um, their dreams because of that. Because they're being taught that, you know, it's a complete waste to go out and get an an education, and um, the organization provides the best education that one can get, and it's free. And it's not free because it's costing you your life.
See a difference between the Olympics and that pagan celebration and birthdays. Especially since birthdays really aren't a pagan celebration. People have celebrated their birthdays since time beginning. Well, look at what just happened with the opening ceremonies of the Olympic Games with Serena Williams. Is that a softening? But look at the huge PR and great PR it is for Watchtower. Oh, here's a Jehovah Witness, a prominent Jehovah Witness, carrying the torch, part of the Olympic Games, honoring Zeus with that festival, that worship of the Olympic flame. You just got to ask. And for those of us that were Jehovah Witness for decades, this raises a big question mark. Like I said, I don't care. I'm just here to expose the hypocrisy, the lies. And speaking of that, I want to thank everybody who has been sending me screenshots from the New Zealand.
So the course of the video is going to change. She's going to start talking about the New Zealand update, which has been phenomenal. Watchtower has been getting their asses handed to them, and they deserve it. I'm going to keep playing the video and go over this too, because I want to cover some of this stuff, and some of the stuff that she talks about too. If someone has money, I don't hate them for having money. I don't hate them for being famous. I don't hate them for, having a good career. That's good. That's good for them, I just find it that from the standpoint of someone being part of an organization that teaches that they teach that they are against all of this, and Watchtower takes a huge, like she said, a huge PR bump from it, because that's coming from a person that has a good background in life, and all the sick things that go on in there, and all the shit that they hide or are trying to hide, that's currently being uncovered, and just for me personally, from everything that I have had to take in my life, because I wanted to practice pagan things, and I grew up in a place where I grew up in a Christian organization. I didn't really understand how things worked then, and I didn't know what I was getting myself into as being a child, being pressured into being baptized, and so I could receive, I guess, validation and love from my family, that I was taking the right choice or the right course in life, which I wasn't. And now seeing that, they're seeing someone practice a pagan thing, and I don't know. I highly doubt that she's gonna get any flack for it because she has money. That's just my whole opinion on it. But the amount of hypocrisy that goes on in Jehovah's Witnesses is mind blowing.
Commission report that just came out, and I want to thank Shane so much for posting these on the JWs for Justice. So I will put a link down below to his Facebook page. Now, when you get this report on page 56, Independent Inquiry into CSA, England and Wales, they even mention ICSA in the Australian Royal Commission, and I thought this was interesting. Point 200. The Independent Inquiry into CSA in England and Wales published an investigation report on child protection in religious organizations and settings, including the Jehovah's Witnesses. The ICSA had different terms of reference from the current New Zealand inquiry and was limited to the abuse of children. Despite this, it is helpful to consider their findings, giving their review of the failures of the Jehovah's Witnesses to identify abuse, the gaps in the child protection procedures of the Jehovah's Witnesses, and their recommendations, which are all relevant to the inquiry. So they had the ICSA report and the Australian Royal Commission report, so they recognized, the information from those inquiries. Now you can see why Watchtower did not want this report out in the public. They have to do some serious damage control now. Point 202. The ICSA found that the Jehovah's Witness organization had the third highest number of abuse victims after the Catholic and Anglican churches. See, and that's why we kept saying, per capita, they're worse than the Catholic Church. And according to this, even the Anglican churches. It further found the two-witness rule is not intended to be a safeguarding measure. It is part of an internal religious process for determining whether someone should remain a congregant. Yeah, it's just, part of their judicial process. Has nothing to do with safeguarding children. Nevertheless, the application of the rule in the context of CSA is likely to increase the suffering of victims and fails to reflect the reality that by its very nature, CSA is most often perpetrator in the absence of witnesses. At least they recognize this, which is good. The Jehovah's Witnesses do not carry out vetting and barring checks on elders, ministerial servants, or those who run the organization regionally or at a national level. See, there's no background checks, no vetting.
And this is something big that people, including myself, have wondered for a long time. Not really wondered, because, over time you kind of just know that the people that they appoint as elders, they don't go through any type of checks, like she said, but they're also appointed to oversee all types of cases that go on within a congregation, and this happens worldwide. So these people that, you know, they don't have any credentials for, you know, for handling these type of cases, yet when you're in the organization, you're taught you should bring all of your woes to your elders, and that includes things that can have, you know, a legal standing that they don't want getting out because it's bad PR for Watchtower, that you should bring it to the elders to handle. And it's seen as, you know, if you go to the police about something that happened within the congregation, like if there's a sexual assault allegation, or if you know of domestic abuse, those types of things are taught to be handled by the elders. And if you're not going to the police about it, then chances are it's going to keep on happening. And it's very sad for the victims that have that happen. And then they also have the consequence of, if they do go to the police, well, you've gone outside of Jehovah's arrangement, and they have a chance, like the victims have a chance of being expelled from the congregation and losing access to their family that may be in the congregation. And it's like, what the fuck? It's a sad, sickening thing that goes on, and the victims get a double whammy for it. One, for being abused, and then two, because they have a chance of being expelled from the congregation for it. And it's because, why? Because it has a chance of bringing reproach on Jehovah's name, but then, you know, you don't, like, the victims don't see any justice from that, and the perpetrator just can just get away with it, you know? Like, there's tons of pedophiles in congregations. I hope that they start cracking down on that, because it's been brought out before that they are protecting pedophiles. Why? Don't know. And another thing with their 2-witness rule, if an elder does something and no one else is around to see it, well, the elder just walks off free, because you're supposed to go to the elders if something happens. But there's no one else around to see it, so nothing happens to that person in the congregation. And then once again, if the victim goes to the police about it, then the victim has a chance of being expelled from the congregation and losing access to their family. And it's a way of producing fear to keep people in control. And it's sick.
Of these perpetrators. This is because they maintain that they do not separate children from their parents during religious worship or practice, or when the children are in the company of someone in a position of trust, and so checks are not permitted by law. This fails to recognize that the mere presence of parents does not prevent those in position of trust from developing inappropriate relationships with children, or being able to groom both their children and their families. And look at how many times this has happened. Elders become a friend of the family, and he's like an uncle to the kids, and they go over and they're friends with the elders' kids, or they do sleepovers, or they go out in service, field service, or on Bible studies. that does not prevent the abuse of kids. I know when we were in Cottonwood, Arizona, the presiding overseers, they're called Kobe's now, but he would have a pocket full of candy. So every time he, would go to the meetings, kids would come running to him and he would give them candy. Of course, then he's wanting to work with them out in service and, giving them hugs and, the grandfatherly.
This is something that I've saw a lot, and when I was a child, I had elders and members of the congregation. Everyone would know who to go to get candy as a kid, and candy is addictive. Kids like candy for a reason. So kids going to the Kingdom Hall to get candy, it's might be kind of a stretch, but if I go out and I go to the meetings like I'm supposed to with my parents, and I engage like I'm supposed to with the ones at the hall, I'm gonna be rewarded for it with candy. And over that happening over years keeps people in. It keeps kids in, and it stops them from, because they get that reward for it. And I've seen, plenty of mainly men, mainly brothers, be lovey-dovey and touching on kids. And I've always felt weird about that. And I've gone and, talked to elders about it at one point or another. And it's just, oh, Jehovah's, that's Jehovah's expression of love. So you're allowed to touch kids because you're an elder? Like, what? Like, it's weird. It's weird. And the thing that was brought out, this is in New Zealand, but Watchtower claims that their policies are the same, for laws or for rules within the congregation are mainly the same around the world. But the whole, parents are with their kids during when elders have to speak to them. I was a child when I was in there, and I've had plenty of instances where elders would put me, aside, away from my parents, wouldn't even go to my parents, and would put me in a back room, and it would be two elders in there talking to me about something. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that this has happened to. And if it's something that they didn't like you doing, then, it was very intimidating. And it leaves an impression on your mind that, you don't have any real control. You don't have any real, power over yourself. And it gives them all the power to control what you do and your thinking, because they put you in a room, like two grown men in a room with a child, and they're going over everything that they think that you've done that they see as wrong. It's super intimidating. And, it crushes people, because you can't, if you're in some type of environment, or if you're being taught that this life is that, you know, life and Jehovah's Witnesses is all that matters, and if you don't do this, then you're going to be destroyed, and what you do in life isn't going to matter anyway. And you have two elders in a room telling you that you're doing bad at life currently because of some actions that you've done. I mean, for me, it was crushing because, well, it doesn't matter what I do in school now. It doesn't matter how much I study academically, because I'm already a failure, being seen as a failure, I guess, in the eyes of God. So it's not going to matter. And then your family finds out about it, and that's added on to it. So I've never had the thing where, you know, they would take my parents with me when I was called into a back room, even, you know, as a kid or as a teenager. I've never had that unless my parents called the meeting. Then they were there. But any other time, it wouldn't be that. And after they are, you know, done demolishing whatever hopes you had in life, they would then go and tell your family, and then it wouldn't just be in at the Kingdom Hall, it would also be at home too.
Type. I don't know if he was a, you know, pervo or not, but you can see how easy it is to groom children. Oh, he's like a grandfather to them. Happens all the time. All the time. Going on. The Jehovah's Witness Child Protection Policy, consisting of 4 core documents, are rooted in religious texts and written in scriptural language. 2 of these documents fail to provide practical guidance, including on how to contact statutory authorities. Well, of course not. Of course not. I have that child protection booklet. It doesn't tell them to contact the authorities. Oh. Going on to page 57, chapter 6, summary of findings. So this is the last page of the document, and it's their findings, and I'm going to read this. Point 203. The inquiry finds that during the inquiry period, elders in the Jehovah's Witnesses held positions of power and had status and authority conferred on them by the faith. Yeah, it's the circuit overseers who are appointed by, you know, Watchtower higher ups that appoint the elders. The faith assumed responsibility for the care of children and young people placed in the care of elders for witnessing activities, like I was just talking about. Yeah. Elders are put in the assumed responsibility of the care of kids. That is big.
And, like, let's say if it's like, you know, time for service or something, they will split up kids. They will split up kids from their parents. They will put them in different car groups, and, you know, the parents are just fine with it. Oh, well, you know, my child's going with elder so-and-so, our brother so-and-so, and he's an elder, and, you know, he's trusted. And that's something that I've come to see as, like, why would someone do that? Why would someone let their kid go off with someone else just because they're an elder? Like, that's your kid. And these people are seen as trusted, they're seen as respected just because they have the status of being an elder. And then years later, stories come out about those same kids went in the car group with that elder, and you hear stories come out, and, you know, the damage has already been done. The kid never said anything about it because, oh, this was, at the time, they are taught that, this is part of Jehovah's love. And it's sickening because these injustices happen for this reason, that parents are taught to trust their elders so much that they will leave their kids with them unmonitored just because they're an elder.
So no more of these court cases saying, oh, well, it's up to the parents. We don't have any organizations, for the care of children. Just the fact that the elders are given the care for the responsibility of these witnessing activities. And investigations in judicial committee processes. Is this why they just had to change the term, no longer judicial committees, they're committees of elders? The faith's assumption of responsibility for those children and young people flowed.
And now that all this information has come out, Watchtower is big on changing their policy, the name of their policies now. Like, I've seen so many change in policy names from when I was in there, and I was there, like, I don't know. I think the last meeting that I went to was I think I went to the Memorial of 2023, and then I stopped going after that. But just, I was already, like, mentally out, but I wasn't ready to, like, tell everything to my family yet, so I was still going at that time. But I mean, the amount of policy changes that I've seen happening this year alone, and this is because of all the court cases that they've been caught lying in, and they found that they don't even have the proper structure to teach people how to contact authorities that are meant to handle abuse cases, because they don't want that getting out. And it's sad. And another thing with, like, elders talking to kids, I think I was like 16 or 17 at this time, but an elder wanted to do a one-on-one study with me, and so he could get my life back on the right track, because at this time I was never happy as a teenager, like, ever, and now I see why. But he sat me down, and his literal words for me were, destroy all the hopes and dreams that you have in your life and focus on the material that Jehovah is giving you to study. And if you don't, I will tear you down myself. Those were his literal words for me. I was like 16 or 17 at the time. And it was just because, I really didn't want anything to do with the organization, but I was trapped in there because that's where my family was, that's where my life was, and that's where I had grown up. And I know I'm not the only one that's happened to.
From its conferral of authority and trusted status on elders, and the action of elders in taking children and young people into their care unsupervised in these contexts. Like I mentioned, out on field service, Bible studies, for sleepovers. In those situations, children and young people were in the care of the faith. Exactly. There is credible evidence that sexual abuse occurred in the care of the Jehovah's Witness faith. I wish Watchtower would admit this. See, the commission recognized it.
Once again, this is all coming out from the New Zealand cases. But I just wonder if this type of investigation happened in the US, how much would actually come out. Because I know that in the US, they have been actively limiting congregations. So they will, what they call, delete a congregation and have those people go to a different kingdom hall, and they will be under a different congregation name. And this is something that I've wondered for a long time. Are they completely destroying the documents that were part of that congregation? Because everything that happens is said to be documented. And then for some reason, once it gets documented, in some cases, I've watched on YouTube of ex-elders giving accounts that those documents are then later on destroyed. But I wonder if, for very serious cases that maybe have been left in that congregation, are they deleting that congregation for that reason, to further destroy evidence of sexual abuse that could have happened? And, once that happens, and the victim at the time no longer has any evidence left that was supposed to be recorded by the elders, it makes it that much harder to catch that pedophile that they were, that they were abused by, or a domestic abuser that they were abused by in the home. And even actively knowing, the elders will not go to the police about it. They will not report it to the police because it brings reproach on Jehovah's name. I've heard that so many times. It's so sickening. And there needs to be something where there needs to be a law in place where they have to go to the police for that.
The practice of elders questioning children or young people who were victims of CSA during investigations and judicial committee processes was inappropriate and emotionally or psychologically abusive. Look at the case in Utah that was going on several years ago, where a young girl, where the pervo actually recorded the attack on the young woman. And that was part of his confession to the elders. And the elders took her in a judicial committee and made her listen to it over and over again and question her and grill her without her parents or, supervised someone on her side. And we know they changed that rule also. Now a minor has to be with one of the parents or guardians to be in a judicial hearing, or no judicial hearings at all. Do you see how all of this is making Watchtower change their policies? This is good for them, but it's too little, too late, and it's not far enough. Hey, Watchtower, how about...
And even after, the kids go through that process, they're still discouraged from doing anything legally, and the elders aren't going to go report it. So why are they questioning them so much? Are they doing it for some weird sexual fetish? I mean, why are they sitting there questioning over and over again, getting into all the gritty details, making the victim relive this moment over and over again, and then the victim doesn't even see any justice from an actual judicial system because they are discouraged from they are discouraged from contacting the authorities, and the congregation won't help them. The elders won't help them contact the authorities because it brings reproach on Jehovah's name. It is so fucking sick.
But an apology to all of the victims. There were factors that increased the risk of abuse in the care of Jehovah's Witnesses, including the status of leaders and the power imbalance between them and members of the faith. See? Imbalance of power. These kids were in there without any representation, parent, or anything. They were alone, a small child against 3 elders grilling them, interrogating them. That's an imbalance of power. And like I said, psychological abuse and emotional abuse.
And if you're baptized as a witness and you're underage and you do something that's wrong, or you commit fornication with someone that's outside of the congregation and you're underage, you commit someone with that fornication of your age, but you're underage, you still have 3 grown men in there trying to get every single detail of what you did during that time. And it's the same with, if there was a sexual abuse case that happened, you have 3 grown men trying to get every single detail. And it doesn't make any sense because nothing comes to light for the victim from it. Absolutely nothing. Besides, they are expected to return to the place, and they also have that added emotional trauma from 3 grown men sitting there interrogating them for hours and multiple times, because they're very sometimes they're slow about things, and they will call multiple meetings with people to investigate a case, and they expect to get every single detail out of it. And then later on, when these people wake up and they realize, oh, I am worth it, I can go to the authorities, I can receive justice for the injustices that have happened to me. Well, we don't have the documents. We destroyed them. We don't keep any account on that. Then why are you in there interrogating someone for hours, recording, writing what they say, trying to get every single detail out, and then you don't have anything to show for it when it actually matters?
The barriers to the disclosure of abuse, including the place of females in the faith, the fear of exclusion, and relative disconnection from the secular world. You're going to be disfellowshipped. Lack of vetting and
What is that thing?
disconnection from the place of females. The barriers to the disclosure of abuse, including the place of females in the faith, the fear of exclusion, and relative disconnection from the secular world.
Yeah. Yeah, there were factors that increase risk of abuse in care of Jehovah's Witnesses, because if you try to go out of the organization and you try to actually seek justice for something that happened to you, then you get hit with a double whammy, because you're at the risk of losing access to your family that is in the organization. Not to mention also being ridiculed and criticized by other members in the congregation along the way, developing a bad reputation in your community for doing something that is actually right.
World. You're going to be disfellowshipped. lack of vetting and training of elders in child protection and abuse prevention. The full extent of abuse in the care of the faith cannot be quantified for reasons including inadequate record keeping and the barriers to disclosure described above. See, Watchtower was trying to prevent this at every step of the way. So it cannot be quantified. They really don't know how bad or how serious of a problem it is. Well, all of us do, don't we? Yeah, it's a tremendous, horrific systemic problem. Steps taken by the faith to prevent and respond to abuse in care were inadequate. In particular, there was inadequate vetting and training of elders in child protection and abuse prevention. The policies, rules, and standards relevant to CSA were from various separate directives from the governing body across many different issues of different publications, all based primarily on passages from Scripture, processes for raising, handling, and responding to concerns or
passages on scripture that they conveniently twist in their own ways when it's convenient for them and use to absolutely demolish any hope that a victim has of, seeing a sense of confidence in themselves to go and actually seek real justice for something that's happened to them. And scriptures that they use to hide, that they use and twist to hide all of the CSA that goes on in there.
or complaints of abuse in care were inadequate. You're that Watchtower, Jehovah's Witnesses. You're inadequate in caring for the children and preventing the abuse. Inadequate. So thank you everyone so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.
Okay, so that was the whole video. I just wanted to go over it because when they brought out like the especially the New Zealand update, I mean the things that they have found and XJWs that have been wronged now have actual legal source to point to say that, they have been lied to and they have been abused, and here's the proof for it. Thank you guys for watching.